Today I'm working on transmissions again. In the last video I tore down this 4L80E that I got at a junkyard. Basically took out all of the internal components and got it ready for cleaning. As you can tell, it's a little bit shinier than last time. Took it to the car wash and I used some gunk engine degreaser that I got from O'Reilly. Sprayed it on, let it sit for 15 minutes, sprayed it off with the hose at the car wash. I did something a little bit different than I usually do when I clean these. I used some M8 by 1.5 bolts that are long enough to clear the parking selector. Threaded them into the oil pan holes. That way it'll hold itself off the ground. In the past I brought blocks of wood and stuff, but I have a whole parts bin full of bolts, so why not try that? It actually worked pretty good. Two reasons I want to get this thing clean. One, just because it's nice to get all the junk off of it, especially when you're touching it a lot and working on it. And two, it has a big crack in it. So right there you can see the bell housing is cracked. And it's cracked about 4 inches back this way. So this one should be a little bit tricky to weld, but it should be challenging and I'm looking forward to it. So what I'd like to do next is actually tear this stuff down. I did find some broken parts on the last video, so this low roller Sprag is destroyed. I'm guessing there's gonna be some other bad parts in here. So what I wanna do before I start working on the case and the welding is I want to inspect all the parts so I can start ordering what I need to fix this thing. I already did order a few things. I ordered a new roller Sprag and I ordered a Turbo 350 pump bearing because I'm going to rollerize the rear output. So this is normally in there and I'm going to turn it into a 3-piece Torrington bearing. I already have the rebuild kit, but I just want to make sure that everything else is going to be good so I'm not getting to the point where I want to put it all back together and I don't have the parts. You can see the little black lines all the way around the direct drum here where it holds the springs in. I think that's clutch material, and that clutch material would be coming from the forward drum, so I'm guessing we're going to find a problem in there also. So let's get to it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I want to stand this thing up. This Sprag was broken. I think I said that a couple times. So I want to stand this all up and make sure everything is clean. So I'm going to take the tail shaft off. I'm also going to be replacing the tail shaft with a 4-wheel drive unit that is shorter. So this just has a snap ring on it. A lot of the stuff on this transmission is just snap ring. So I'm just going to use a flathead, get the tail shaft out. And then there is a Torrington bearing inside here. It's a 3-piece bearing. So I'm going to make sure that that stays together the same way that it came off. Make sure all of the pieces come out because I'll be reusing that bearing. And then I'll probably just stick it right back on here for now. What I can do with this then is stand this up. I can just disassemble this whole thing. Another 3-piece bearing. This actually rests like right on top of the planetary gears there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the sun shaft. I'm going to take out the sun gear. And just double check everything. Go inside and make sure that all the gears are nice and not chipped. And then I'll put this back together. And then one important thing when putting the sun shaft back inside the sun gear, there's a little notch there. You're supposed to line up that lube hole with the notch. So it should be in there lined up with the notch like that. And this piece, I know that there's chunks stuck inside there. So you can see the little piece. So I'm going to go in here with a rag and I'm going to clean this crap out of here. Put this back over the top, get it lined up with the sun gear, and then put this bearing back over. And then I'll let it sit. Actually, I think what I'll do, just because of the bearing being loose here, I think I'm going to assemble it completely. I'll put the shaft back on until I get the new shaft, and then I'll put it all, and then I'll switch it out. And this will be my my last offer to trade a 2-wheel drive for a 4-wheel drive output shaft with no lube hole. This one doesn't have lube hole. So I'm just asking because every time I do one of these and I switch it, there's always like 100 requests to trade the shaft. Even like 6 months after I'm done doing it, there's always requests on the video. But now that I'm doing one, I knew that, so I'm putting I put a message out there on Facebook or something like that asking, even locally and on my group page. And nobody said anything about it, so it's funny how that works. And then when I'm done and I trade it and I get rid of this one, then there'll be 100 people wanting to trade. As I mentioned earlier, the direct drum has all these little black lines on it, which I think is actually from the forward drum clutches. So we'll see if we can verify that in a little bit. The intermediate clutches and steels, those are all going to be replaced. So I don't really need to go through that. I will go through the direct drum here, pull the snap ring out. Pretty easy. And then you can pull these out like this, or you can just dump them into your hand. So I just dumped it out. So we got a wave plate and then all the clutches and steels. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clutches and steels in there. The kit that I have actually comes with an extra one. So these actually look pretty good. The steels all look really good. All the clutches and steels are gonna go, so I'm going to set these off to the side. And I'll keep them because they actually look pretty good. So if I ever smoke a transmission and I need some parts really quick, I'm just gonna keep those. So moving on to the forward drum, I'll put this top pressure plate back in. I'm gonna put the wave plate back in first. And then I'll put the pressure plate back on. And I'll just put the snap ring on here for now until I actually go and pull the springs out. All right, so let's look at this forward assembly here. Yeah, and there's a bunch of black crap all the way around here. So I'm guessing these things are smoked. Yeah, you can see all that filth and all that crap around the outside. See that? Oh, and there's chunks too. Should be interesting. This will be an adventure. Take the forward hub out. Look at that. It's just black, but it's not burnt. It's just all clutch. There's one clutch, and you can see on the back side it's completely black and smoked. And there's a bunch of grooves in it. This one looks like it's bare metal. See that? It's bare metal. The steel. Yeah, the steel and the clutch were just bare metal. Look how bad that one's burnt. You see a burn spot right in it. All right. So that's pretty interesting. Big old chunk. Man, this thing is bad. This is like one of the worst I've seen. The steels and the clutches are actually welded together. They're all stuck together. Let's see if we can get them apart. See that? It's 3 clutches and 3 steels all welded, chunked together, stuck together. And I can't even get them apart. Oh yeah, there we go. I can pull them a little bit here. And I'm pulling pretty hard. So yeah, those are pretty much welded. Now I'm curious if I can actually get them apart. There you go. So that was a clutch welded right to a steel. So we're not going to reuse these. These are going to be junk. I'm not even going to keep these. They're pretty bad. That drum or that forward hub, I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit. We should be able to use it. And then the drum, I'm going to make sure I do a good inspection on the drum. So the top pressure plate, the hub, and then when I press the springs out of here, I'll double check and make sure that this drum actually cleans up decent. All right, and the fourth drum is probably going to be pretty good. Just from what I can tell on the inside, the clutches already look really good. This one is applied in overdrive, so it doesn't really get a whole lot of action. These are probably going to be pretty good looking. There you go. You can still see the lines in them. Like these lines right here, you can still see. No issues with the clutches. No issues with the steels. They all look like fresh, brand new. So I'm gonna put this all back together. We'll keep it just like that, and we won't touch this one anymore. Okay, so now we'll get to this overrun assembly here. Input shaft. The input shaft actually comes out of this little assembly. There is a snap ring that holds the shaft in. Don't lose that snap ring, or you'll have to get a new one. Ask me how I know. So input shaft will come out. Real easy to come out. It does have the Teflon rings on here, which will probably be replacing. And then the Overrun drum here is just another snap ring, just like the other drums. And I was looking through it, and I don't think my kit actually has these clutches. So same thing, I'm just gonna check all the wheels, check all the planetary gears, make sure there's no scuffs or anything messed up on these. Check all the clutches and steels, make sure everything's good. Yep, everything looks peachy. You can still see the lines on it, no marks. These are like really good looking. So I don't know if that was a mistake with that kit, that there's no Overrun clutches. Then this is the Overrun Sprag. I think this is actually like the weaker of the two designs, the one with the blue on it. There's one that just has the big rollers on it without the plastic. I think that's the older version, but it's a stronger version. But we'll just go with this, we'll keep this. So this looks all good. I'm gonna put this back together, shimmy it, because you gotta get the gears to line up, and then you gotta get the clutches and steels to line up with the drum. There we go. So now it engaged that Sprag. We weren't all the way down on the piston yet. There we go. And you can hear the metal on metal. Next step, I'm going to be working on the forward and the direct drums, getting the springs and the pistons out. I have the forward drum already set up on the press. This time I'm using a press. I do have a budget way to do this that I showed in a previous video right here. Just using some simple wood clamps and getting the job done. But as I've done these transmissions more and more, I went out and bought the press just because it's a little bit more convenient. It's not as much of a struggle. But the clamp method works well enough if you're just going to do it one time and be done with it. So now that we got our little snap ring off of the spring plate, we can lift this up. And the 4L80s have the bottom and the top together holding the springs. The TH400s will have the springs loose in there. So now the piston will come out. I'm just going to take this thing, twist it, and lift up on it. And these bonded pistons actually hold up pretty well. This one looks pretty good, and it does say forward on it. So the forward and the direct drum, they take the same size clutches, but the pistons are slightly different. The center section is a little bit different size, so they are not interchangeable. One will fit in the other, but the other won't fit in both. So this forward drum actually looks pretty good. I just have to go through and I'm going to clean out all the clutch material that's kind of built up on the sides of it. And the direct drum here is basically the same thing. You have a spring set, and then the piston comes out. So this one's marked direct on the bottom. So it might be hard to see there, but if you look at the differences in the size, so the pistons are like the same diameter, but the center section is a little bit different. So you can see the forward drum is actually smaller. So the forward drum won't fit over the direct, but the direct will fit over the forward drum. So don't mix that up. So we're going to be dual feeding this transmission. So I'm going to take this lip seal right out, right away. Don't need that guy where we're going. And then I'm going to take this piston in it. I'm going to set it right over here. These things are actually still really good, so I'm just going to leave that stuff. I'll use all my new stuff. So I'll get that stuff ready to go back together. And then I think we're pretty much good on the inspection portion. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video. Just to recap what we did, I took the tail shaft off of the transmission because I'm going to be shortening it. Took the rear carrier assembly apart, inspected all the planetary gears, inspected all the hard parts. I'm going to be swapping to the shorter shaft, but I'm going to leave it on so I didn't mess up the bearings. Then we started to go through all of the drums. I know the center support was bad. I went over that in a previous video. I already ordered that. And I'm not really too concerned about the cost on this transmission because I did get it so cheap. It was a core transmission basically from a junkyard for $150. So the money that I have into it, including the rebuild and everything, will be still cheaper than what it would have been to buy a decent transmission and then rebuild it. We went through the forward drum, the direct drum, the overrun drum, and the fourth drum. Fourth and overrun were really good, looked awesome. The direct drum looked pretty good, but the forward clutches were all smoked. So good thing I didn't just take this transmission and put it in and just hope for the best, because it definitely had some issues. So what I'm planning on working on next is getting this case welded up. That'll probably be the next video, and then I'm getting the trans brake actually tomorrow, so then I can start going through the instructions and making sure I got everything, and we'll start putting that thing together. I still have to get the rear output shaft. Maybe I'll trade it, maybe I not. If they're like $30 or $40 on eBay, so I'll probably just order one tomorrow if I don't get a response. But overall, things are going pretty well on this one. So thanks for watching and have a good one.